They said the war room had seen every kind of soldier, from broken men who rose from ashes to iron-hearted killers molded by combat. But that morning, when the SEAL Admiral leaned across the steel table and smirked, call sign, he didn't expect the woman standing opposite him to answer with something that would freeze the blood of every commander in the room. She wasn't just another recruit. She was the ghost they thought died in an operation that never made it to the Pentagon's records. Her voice was calm, measured, and lethal when she replied, "Black Widow." For a split second, every screen flickered, and the air went dead silent. Because everyone in that room knew that name. A name erased from every file, whispered in NATO briefings as a rumor, not a reality. The SEAL Admiral's smirk faded. He'd made a joke, but the moment she spoke, it wasn't funny anymore. Subscribe now, because what follows is the story of the woman who rewrote the laws of covert warfare, the ghost of a secret America never wanted to admit existed. The fluorescent hum of the Pentagon's underground command center was the kind of noise that crawled into your head and stayed there. It was 0540 hours, rain slamming Washington's empty streets, and Admiral John Reeves had just been handed a personnel file that made no sense. No record of deployment, no branch listing, no file photo, he muttered, flipping through the pages as his XO shrugged. Yet Langley swears she's cleared for Tier 1 ops. The room smelled of burnt coffee and damp uniforms. A dozen elite officers gathered around the table, SEALs, Delta, CIA, Cyber Command, the kind of people who could topple governments without leaving their desks. The door opened with a hiss and she walked in. Average height, unassuming frame, dark green fatigues with no name tag, eyes sharp enough to cut through concrete. Nobody knew her. Nobody had to. The way she moved, silent, precise, like a predator, who'd already mapped everyone's weaknesses, said everything. Reeves leaned back, his grin easy but testing. "You're the one Langley sent?" he asked. She nodded once. "Name?" he prodded, glancing at her blank ID badge. "Doesn't matter," she said, voice flat but deliberate. Reeves chuckled, glancing at the room. "Everyone's got a call sign here, sweetheart. What do they call you?" There was a heartbeat of silence before she answered. Not loud, not proud, just steady. "Black Widow." The laughter that followed was quick and cruel. "Cute," muttered one of the SEALs. "What is this? Avengers boot camp?" But her gaze didn't flicker. She stepped forward, dropping a thin file on the table. Inside were black and white surveillance photos, classified target sheets marked "Top Secret," and one image that made every man in that room stiffen, the wreckage of an Iranian convoy that had been wiped off the map in 2019 by what was rumored to be a rogue NATO strike team. "That was me," she said simply. Reeves frowned, flipping through the pages. "Operation Scythe," he murmured. "That op never happened. It was a myth." "No," she replied. "It was erased." Her voice had the weight of someone who'd buried too many comrades and burned too many flags. "You were part of Scythe?" the CIA officer asked, disbelief edging into fear. "I was Scythe," she said. "The only survivor." The room fell silent, the laughter dying instantly. She didn't blink, didn't move, just stood there with the stillness of a sniper before the shot. Reeves leaned forward, the humor gone. "You're telling me you ran a black operation that doesn't exist, killed targets we never sanctioned, and now you're standing in my war room asking for what, exactly?" She met his stare. "A seat at the table," she said, "because the war you think you're fighting isn't the one that's coming." There was something in her tone. Not arrogance, not desperation. Something colder. Reeves was a man who'd commanded SEAL teams in Somalia, seen men burn, alive and laugh about it, but that tone made the back of his neck prickle. "And what war is that?" he asked. She looked at the giant digital map glowing behind him, red dots pulsing across Eastern Europe, the South China Sea, the Arctic Circle. "The one that doesn't show up on your screens," she said. Every operative in that room had been handpicked for intelligence beyond measure, but her words cracked something primal in them. That sense that maybe, just maybe, someone else had been pulling the strings all along. The CIA officer Nolan leaned back. "You expect us to believe you?" he asked. "You vanish for 4 years, show up with ghost files, and expect clearance?" She didn't respond. She just reached into her tactical vest and slid a small, encrypted data chip across the table. "Plug it in," she said. "Then decide." Reeves hesitated, then nodded at Nolan. The officer inserted the chip into the console, and the screens erupted to life. Satellite footage, encrypted transcripts, voice logs, all pointing to one terrifying conclusion. Someone had been infiltrating the Pentagon's secure systems for over a year, using access levels only available to Joint Chiefs. Reeves's jaw tightened. "Where did you get this?" She didn't look at him. "From your servers." A ripple of unease passed through the room. "You hacked the Pentagon?" Nolan demanded. "No," she said. "Someone else did. I just followed the footprints." On screen, a blinking signature appeared, a red spider logo, its legs stretching across classified schematics of U.S. submarine networks and nuclear launch pathways. "The Widow Protocol," she murmured. "Named after me. But I didn't create it." Reeves looked up sharply. "Who did?" Her eyes met his. "Someone who used to command me." And that's when it hit him. This wasn't a soldier asking for a job. This was a warning. A ghost from the dark side of America's war machine, walking back into the light to tell them something was coming. Reeves rubbed his temples, exhaling. "You're saying one of our own went rogue?" She nodded. "Not just rogue, rebuilt Scythe from the inside out." He frowned. "Impossible. Every trace of that op was deleted." "Exactly," she said quietly. "Someone deleted it for a reason." The war room buzzed with low whispers, men who'd never known fear suddenly wondering if the walls around them were as secure as they thought. Reeves finally spoke, voice low. "You've got 5 minutes to tell me everything before I decide whether to have you escorted out or promoted to command." She nodded, stepping closer. "Then you'd better listen fast," she said, "because your systems aren't the only ones being watched." Outside, thunder rolled over D.C., and deep beneath the Pentagon, in the heart of the most secure room in America, every man in uniform realized they were no longer the hunters. They were the prey. The war room locked down within seconds of her warning, red lights flashing, encrypted channels sealing off like arteries closing after trauma. Admiral Reeves stood frozen, his face carved in disbelief as the screens bled, static before rebooting to a single word pulsing in crimson. "Awaken." Black Widow's jaw tightened. She'd seen that message before, in the ruins of Istanbul when Scythe was betrayed from the inside. "They're already in your network," she said, moving toward the console as guards raised their rifles, uncertain who the real threat was. "Stand down!" Reeves barked, his instincts torn between distrust and the creeping horror that she might be telling the truth. She began typing commands, her hands fast and surgical, bypassing Pentagon firewalls like they were made of paper. The CIA officer leaned in, eyes wide as the data unfolded. Covert transmission routes from inside the Pentagon to coordinates in the Baltic Sea, military-grade ciphers pinging back to an unknown submarine system. "That's a live feed," she said coldly. "And whoever's running it has your nuclear codes." The room erupted. Reeves slammed his fist against the table. "Who the hell are we dealing with?" he shouted. "Someone who calls himself Ghost Admiral," she replied. "He was Scythe's original commander, the one who ordered us erased." Silence swallowed the chaos. "You're saying your own CO is behind this?" Nolan whispered. She nodded. "He disappeared after the mission. Everyone thought he died, but he didn't. He went dark, built a shadow fleet using the same black funding the Pentagon buried. He's been preparing for this moment ever since. Reeves stared at her like she'd dragged hell into his war room. And what's the endgame? She looked up at the screens as the red spider logo fractured into dozens of encrypted coordinates across the globe. He's going to start a war, she said quietly, and make it look like we fired first. Within minutes, the Pentagon was in full lockdown, every corridor crawling with armed response teams, while the war room turned into a command center for chaos. Black Widow stood unmoving amid the storm of shouting officers, her eyes fixed on the satellite feed showing the Ghost Fleet surfacing in the Baltic, 6 submarines that shouldn't exist, flying no flag, broadcasting stolen U.S. signatures. He's using our codes to trigger a false retaliation, she said, voice calm despite the tremor in the floor as the alert klaxons wailed. Reeves barked orders, demanding naval confirmation, but the comms crackled only static. They've hijacked our comm grid, she said, moving to a secondary terminal and pulling out a drive engraved with the same spider insignia. This is his key, she explained. But there's a counter-sequence, one only I know. Reeves glared. You're telling me you can stop him? If you trust me for 10 minutes, she replied. The tension was suffocating. Reeves hesitated, then nodded. She plugged in the drive, her fingers flying as she overrode protocol after protocol, the system fighting her like a living thing. He's watching, she murmured as the screens flickered to life again, revealing a grainy live feed, a face half in shadow, half lit by cold blue light. The Ghost Admiral. His voice filled the room, low and venomous. I warned them not to build weapons they couldn't control, he said. Now you'll all drown in your own lies. You betrayed your country, Reeves shouted, but the man only smiled. No, John, I'm saving it from the people who sold it. Black Widow stepped forward, eyes locked on the ghost of her past. You killed my team, she said. You made me bury them under false names. You buried yourself, he replied. But you can still come home. The feed cut to black, alarms blaring as one of the subs launched a missile. Reeves turned to her, panic breaking his composure. He's targeting the 7th Fleet. She slammed the console, encrypting a rapid response. Not if I can reach him first, she hissed. Get me an uplink to the drone network. And for the first time, the SEAL Admiral saw what everyone whispered about in rumors, why they called her Black Widow. Not because she killed enemies, but because every mission she survived left her alone. The Pentagon went dark as emergency power surged back online, the hum of generators echoing like a heartbeat in the depths of the command bunker. Black Widow's fingers moved faster than any coder Reeves had ever seen, her focus absolute as the world above balanced on the edge of annihilation. The Ghost Admiral's subs had vanished beneath a storm front in the Baltic, their signals spoofing U.S. satellites to make it appear as if America had fired the first strike. NATO channels were lighting up, scrambling interceptors, and in 10 minutes the entire alliance would fracture into panic. If I don't sever his control loop, he'll trigger the chain, she said, sweat sliding down her temple as she bypassed digital firewalls like nerves snapping one by one. What chain? Reeves demanded. Operation Shepherd, she said grimly. A fail-safe to launch retaliatory nukes if our fleet's signatures match an attack sequence. He's turned it into a suicide switch. The room went silent. She opened the Widow protocol core, revealing a labyrinth of encrypted pathways. One wrong keystroke, and the system would trigger global retaliation. Reeves watched helplessly as she worked, every screen filling with red code cascading like blood down glass. He's not just after war, she said, voice steady despite the chaos. He's after exposure. He wants to burn the entire shadow network, every covert op, every secret the Pentagon ever buried, and start from zero. Suddenly, the Ghost Admiral's face returned on the central monitor, his tone calm, even nostalgic. You were always my finest creation, he said softly. You were supposed to be my successor. She didn't look up. You turned soldiers into ghosts, she replied. You made us disposable. I made you unstoppable. he hissed. "And you still serve a system that feeds on lies." "Then I'll burn with it," she whispered, fingers slamming the final command. The room plunged into silence, then erupted in a blinding flash as the Widow protocol reversed, hijacking the Ghost Admiral's command loop. On screen, his subs began surfacing, their navigation collapsing under digital assault. "What did you do?" Reeves shouted. "I gave him exactly what he wanted. A full reveal." One by one, encrypted Pentagon files began uploading to global servers, exposing every hidden war, every illegal strike, every black operation. "He wanted the truth," she said. "Now the world will see it. And him." The Ghost Admiral screamed as his feed disintegrated, the data overload frying his systems. Then the ocean swallowed his fleet, silent and final. The screens flickered out, replaced by static. The war room was dead quiet, the hum of servers the only sound left. Reeves turned to her, eyes wide with disbelief. "You just exposed the entire military machine," he said. "You didn't stop him, you finished his mission." She holstered her weapon, the ghost of a smile crossing her lips. "Then maybe it's time the world saw what we really are." He stepped forward, voice low. "You'll be hunted for this." She met his gaze. "I've been hunted before." Without another word, she turned and walked toward the blast doors, boots echoing through the hollow silence. Outside, dawn was breaking over Washington, but the streets were already alive with chaos, news feeds lighting up with classified documents, military convoys locking down, government scrambling to control the fallout. Black Widow walked through the chaos unnoticed, blending into the crowd as if she were never there. The war room she left behind became a legend, a story whispered among operatives about the woman who broke the chain of command to stop a ghost. Months later, deep in a coastal bunker somewhere off Iceland, a flicker of life returned to one of the destroyed subs. A weak signal, a heartbeat and static. A single phrase blinked across the cracked display. "Widow 1. Then, beneath it, a new line appeared. "Awaken Phase 2. Far away, in a safe house outside London, Black Widow watched the signal flicker on her laptop, her expression unreadable. "He's still out there," she murmured. Reeves's voice crackled through her earpiece. "If you go after him, there's no coming back." She looked out at the cold Atlantic horizon. There never was. And as the wind howled through the empty shore, she closed the laptop, the reflection of the spider logo vanishing in her eyes. The world would never know her name, only the call sign that made even admirals fall silent. Black Widow. Subscribe now, because legends don't die. They disappear until the next war needs them.